we're married, we're a husband and wife team working together. It's not easy.
But I think you have to have a dream to start with. That's how it kind of all starts.
This was a huge turning point.
The candle doesn't burn brightly sometimes, and the last thing you want to do is go and pick up a camera.
I could just cry thinking about that. That's special.
Welcome to Brand Stories, a podcast where we delve into the journeys behind the brands. Today we're at Bloomfield Road, home of Blackpool Football Club. In this episode we're thrilled to have Brett and Kristie Harkness, the dynamic duo behind Harkness Photography. We'll dive deep into their unique journey of developing a thriving photography business, the highs and lows of working together as a family, and how they've turned their shared vision into a reality. Enjoy. Hello guys. Thank you very much for coming to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Before we get into talking about the history of the business, could you please let us know a little bit about what you guys actually do?
Right, so we are a photography business. We specialize in weddings, we specialize in commercial photography, and we also cover lifestyle photography and videography.
Awesome.
It's a mixture, yeah. The video's a recent addition,
Yeah.
but mainly to our commercial arm of our business. Yeah. But we've been doing weddings for 25 years.
25 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know it's hard to believe.
It really is.
I know.
It really
It's
is.
just the good light in here.
Great lighting in here. So when did this all start? When did you, well firstly, there's two of you. So what's going on there? Are you business partners?
We're both.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
No, I didn't marry my assistant.
Ah,
It was
okay.
the other way around.
Okay.
She became my assistant.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
And then-
Kristie tells the story better than me. I tend to elaborate on the
And then
finer
quickly
details.
became his boss.
Okay, so when did you guys first meet?
So Brett and I met on a cruise ship in 1999. I was a professional dancer doing the shows, and he was chief photographer for the photography team. The dancers used to, because we only danced in the evenings, we used to have other kind of jobs that we would do during the day, and I worked on the photography, with the photography team. And one thing led to another, and we were an item. It was a love boat.
It was.
yeah.
And we were doing fairly mundane type of photography out there. We'd shoot weddings with one-roll film on the beaches and stuff like that. Getting dressed up as pirates, running around, doing crazy stuff. So it was run-of-the-mill, photography for what it was. But it gave you a chance to learn how to deal with people, save up for kit, stuff like that. So I was probably out there for 6 years. Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah.
So when did you first get into photography then?
Oh, I did it at school. Yeah, I think our school was one of the first places to offer it as a bit of a thing. GCSEs, CSEs, I remember that, you won't be that old. GCSE, I did it at A-level, and then it was probably A-level I decided that, I think this might be a career path or something I wanted to, push further. Did it as sixth form, took a year out, sort of made up my mind between the arts, and then ended up doing it as a degree at Nottingham.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So did you work anywhere else before you went on the cruise ships?
I was sat in a cafe in Nottingham, 20 grand in debt, thinking, what? Nobody's offered me a job now, what's happening? I've finished my 3 years at uni. Surely there's another step, and me and a friend were reading the back of a newspaper, and there were cruise ship positions in Miami. We were like, oh, hello.
Wow.
2 weeks later, we were rocking up in Miami. So
Amazing. So you're on the cruise ships, you met there, and then what happened after the cruise ships?
So our contracts ended. I went back to Canada. Brett went back to England, and it was the millennium. New Year's Eve happened. Everybody was still alive. The computer still worked, and he called. We were talking obviously on the phone at that stage. No mobile phones, and he said, "Why don't you come to England and see me?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, why not? 21 years old." Yeah, bye mum and dad. I'm off to England to see this handsome photographer that I met.
times change.
So I went over in January 2000 just for a couple of weeks. And 2 days before my flight, Brett was like, why don't you just stay? And I was like, yeah, sure. Well, I'll stay, get a job, which I did. So I stayed, and then I realized I needed a visa. So I went back to Ottawa, got my visa, came back and auditioned for a show at the Winter Gardens Theatre, and did a 3-month contract doing a show there. So ironically, 24 years later, we're back where we started, really, which is crazy.
And I was in India, I think.
Yeah,
I
so-
went back on ships at that point.
Yeah.
I
Oh, right,
hadn't
okay.
finished.
Yeah, so Brett went back on ships. I stayed here, did the show, and then I came in January 2001. Was it 2001? 2001, I went back out onto the ships to meet him, and then we were going to decide what to do. And at that point, Brett was nearly 30. I'm a bit younger. And he was like, I want to get off ships. I want to start my life. I want to, I've done it. So at that point, we took 6 months and got an apartment in South Beach just to hang out and decide if we were going to go to Canada or back to England. A few things transpired and we ended up back in England in 2001. June 2001, we ended up back in England.
With very little business knowledge,
Yeah.
I have to add.
Okay.
It was a fledgling beginning. It was a dream. But I think you have to have a dream to start with. That's how it kind of all starts.
Absolutely.
Nobody had really sat down and said, this is what you have to do to be a photographer. It was kind of like we were winging it, to be fair.
We had no idea. We were just like, oh, okay. What are we doing now?
So in England, how did the business side come up then? Did you decide to work for someone else, or was it like I just want to do it on my own?
Well, I was offered a job at a national chain of portrait studios, and I was due to start, I think, on the following week. And I sort of sat there and went, what am I doing? I've just really been doing this for the last 6.5 years in Miami. It doesn't really make sense. I can kind of do it for myself.
I remember saying to Brett, why do you want to work for somebody else when you can just work for yourself? And at that point, we were like, okay, let's
jump in.
Let's go for
but
it.
We didn't know what we were jumping into or what. And we quickly realised that maybe weddings was kind of a thing. It wasn't a thing back then. Nobody wanted to be a wedding photographer. It wasn't cool. It just wasn't. It had that image of, crusty old men doing their things with tripods and stuff like that. And that's kind of how the vision was. It was not, people who were world-leading photographers photographing weddings. It didn't exist.
We were when we started, we were shooting on film. So we were, going to the labs, getting the film developed, literally going like this, trying to see the pictures, giving people prints, and it was. Well, you kind of look back and you think it's archaic, but yeah, when we started, we were all on film.
So we were lucky. We quickly realised when we did decide that, because Kristie had a job somewhere else.
Okay.
I was waiting for this job to come up to start, and we realised within 3 days of Kristie starting this job and me being offered a job that maybe we should go and do our own thing. We stumbled upon a space in Rochdale, just outside of Manchester, and that's where our first studio was. And it happened to be above a small, very small room, probably no bigger than this, above a bridal shop.
Ah.
Da-da! And we had a fantastic relationship with her for a couple of years.
Which came in quite handy because we then decided we needed to get married.
Okay.
And
Couldn't find a photographer anyway.
we pulled it together rather quickly. So I literally got a sample dress for £100 off the rail, and 2 weeks later, February 14th, 2002, we got married in Gretna Green.
Wow.
Eloped.
How incredible.
Yeah.
So straight from there then, you mentioned before about business not really being a thing that you thought about. How did you find it becoming a photographer who owns their own business?
You can be the best photographer in the world. If you don't know how to show people that, then there's no point. If that's what you're looking to get out of your photography, a lot of photographers do it as a second job. So it's not as important to make the money. Most guys and girls do it because it's they want it to be their full-time career. We fumbled our way through a year in the very tiny studio, doing what we thought we should do, things like that, what we thought was expected of us as far as portraiture went, doing it in a studio environment, things like that. Weddings was pretty much what I was shooting on the cruise ships with flash. It was kind of, a bit old-fashioned,
Yeah,
but that's the way we were doing it.
Our package was like 1 roll of film and 1 hour of our service at the registry office. That was our start. I remember one of our first clients turned up at the registry office, and her side of the family was dressed as the Addams family, and his was very conservative, all in suits. And they arrived in a semi, like what do you call it here? Is it a lorry with no trailer on it, and they were dressed as the Addams Family. Like one of the guys had like the hand
Oh,
on
really?
the suit. Seriously. And on some of the stories that we could tell you from like early weddings, we should probably sit down and write
My
about.
retirement podcast will be full of that. Yeah, don't worry about it. But yeah, that was sort of our first together thing. You know,
Yeah.
our first wedding. I think we did sort of together and thought, oh, it's kind of fun this, but we're not really doing it how I really want to do it. I've travelled the world a lot. I've done some beautiful documentary imagery. I'm like, why can't we really go down that sort of line, make it a bit more documentary, maybe some fashion elements to it, and we slowly started to bring that in. A year in, we realised we probably needed a bit of help with business, more maybe than the photography side of things.
This was a huge turning point. This next kind of step of our business.
Next 18 months, we did a training course, a year-long training course. It was
For photographers.
Yeah, in the Lake District.
In the Lake District.
Right, okay.
So every month we would go up and it was teaching you how to really do a high quality photography business. Selling, marketing, shooting, and it was getting outside, doing lifestyle photography with families, with kids.
It was run by a well-known lifestyle photographer called Annabelle Williams.
Okay.
I think it was CPT back then, wasn't it? Contemporary photographic training. So we signed up for the full shebang and just jumped in, really. We'd managed to acquire some kit. You know, being in Miami, I'd saved up and we'd bought kind of the kit that we needed. But it was a whole world of what do we do next? How do we sell this? How do we get the clients that we want? I think, when did the internet come in properly?
Yeah.
You know, we hadn't really gone down
Yeah, so that was probably
road a lot.
2003, 2004. So it was still like lifestyle photography and documentary wedding photography were just starting to pick up speed. Where, you know, natural wedding photography, it was starting to come into fashion rather than just a series of group shots with your family. People were, you know, getting wanting more and something a bit different. And with Brett's documentary photography that he did whilst he was traveling, it kind of nicely married up to documentary in weddings.
Okay.
So
But times were simpler.
Yeah.
Clients would come in to our tiny little studio and they would view images on a slide carousel. Remember those round
Yes.
things that used to
Remember
like
it very well.
Yeah. And then we'd have a break while we changed the carousel, and then that's how they would pick their images. It's insane when you think about it.
But I think that course gave us the recipe of what type of business we wanted to have. We wanted to have a higher end business. We wanted to take care of our clients. We wanted to give them an experience alongside the service. We wanted to offer them high end products. We wanted to offer them quality products. So it introduced us to a lot of suppliers and gave us the recipe of how to run a business that was a bit special.
Okay.
So
It
that was our...
wasn't easy. You had to put the legwork in. You had to follow the recipe, but you know, you could still be a bad chef, and that was really key. And we had a product. We knew we had a product. That wasn't the issue. It was just that nobody else knew that.
So for you guys then, because obviously with photography being a passion and something you wanted to do, how did that sort of business side come through? Was it a struggle? Could you get your head around the fact that I need to start looking at profit, loss?
No, because we
things
never
like that?
did. And I remember that first, because we were young, like I was 22, Brett was just 30, well, 23 and 30. So it was, you have zero worries. You've got, you know, our first house was £50,000 and you didn't have to have a deposit. Like that was, you know, to think of that now is unthinkable because that would never happen. You need a £50,000 deposit probably to get a house. But it was, we didn't really, I remember our accountant saying to us early days, you know what, you're a small business. If you're leading the lifestyle that you want, then don't worry
Do you know
about
what he said? He said, if you're putting food on the table and you haven't got holes in your shoes, you're not doing that bad. And that's what he
So
said.
we never thought about it. We just took risks. So we went from
financial goals. Sorry to interrupt. Financial goals and planning and all that. It wasn't a thing. Maybe it was a thing for for businesses. We didn't really see ourselves as a business at that point. We were just a couple who loved each other. We loved what we did. We still do each other and what we do. I have to point that out. But we didn't think of ourselves as a product that was sellable until the imagery started doing it for us.
But I think kind of going back when people say do what you love, that was always the core. Brett loved photography, and I believed 150% that he was the best photographer, and I was there to make it happen, which we're still doing, and that's what gets us through. It's not work. It's never seemed like work.
And do you feel that is part of the success, that you did what you loved because you loved it?
100%. We had like that first 10 years, we had, and we still do have fun. It's a bit different now because life is different, but that initial period of it, we just went, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Oh, should we get a new studio, a different studio, a bigger studio? Yeah. Everybody was like, oh, a bit much. We renovated the whole thing, sanded the floors,
we would drive to weddings like the night before. Not even book a hotel. We'd just get to the venue. Oh, we'll be somewhere.
Yeah, well, somewhere.
We were winging it because it was that's just the way it was. Yeah, things change. Financial structures, planning. You have kids, mortgages. Things change. So you have to look at it more as a business, which we did and we do. But I think initially, unless you've got that passion and that drive, and that's what gets you through initially. And the business stuff will come.
Yes.
But it's just as important.
But it's been 22 years. That is ridiculous to think. We've run a business for 22 years. We've been married for 22 years. It actually doesn't seem real because it doesn't seem like, when you're young, you think 22 years of doing something, that's a hell of a long time. And we're still doing it. And you can't do something that long if you don't love it.
No.
100%.
So on that course, we learned. The photography was never a problem. Like I said, I did learn certain things from the photographers who taught how to use daylight, how to use different backgrounds, getting out of that safety of a studio environment, using skips as a backdrop, having the brain and the tenacity to put a family in front of a skip and say, don't worry, it's fine, trust me, First time I did that was kind of weird. It was a footballer, and then he was like, what are we doing down a back street? I went, mate, let's just go with it, trust me on this. But it made sense. But we learned how to sell, or how to let our images sell to the client, how to upsell after the fact, how to sell products, all that kind of thing. Not just do the shoot, there's the pictures, thanks very much. Like it kind of is for a lot of guys nowadays with the digital things that we have, to be able to say, there you go, they're online.
Some of our earliest clients, like from 2004 wedding clients, we've gone with them through their family and watched their kids grow up. We go to their houses and they've got our photographs on the wall framed from when their child was 1 to 18. Yeah. Like this year, which is crazy, one of our very first brides, her son was 6 and walked her down the aisle. And we're shooting his wedding in August.
Oh, wow.
Like that, I could just cry thinking about that. That's special. Like it, yeah, there's a lot of scenarios where we've done some brides' weddings twice. It's happened. I don't know, it is a privilege. And you think the photography, what we do for our clients, it gets better as you get older. Our product gets better for them. It's more special. I had 2 brides last year contact us from their weddings were early 2000. Their dads have passed away. We've got the pictures. That joy that we can bring somebody of memories is priceless. Yeah, it really is.
But just going back to the business side of things and the artistic side of things for a point, is that I've never stopped. I'm redeveloping, reinventing the way that I shoot all the time, and so it's still me, it's still my style, and that's a vital part of being a photographer. And some guys don't want to change, and they do what they were doing 20 years ago, which is fine. But for the way I develop with the technology that we use, the techniques that we adopt when we light things like that, it's relevant, and the way that we shoot is almost future-proof, and I think that's really important as a photographer, just to keep, be you. But don't be afraid of advancing what you're trying to offer for the client, because clients come back, but they come back for something different maybe every time.
Absolutely. So how do you feel that technology is currently having an impact on your industry? I mean, we see it, there you go. I mean, we see it ourselves in design and from a branding point of view, new software, that comes out that has an impact on what we do, AI for instance. How do you feel things like that are having an impact on your industry now?
When AI came out, I don't even know when it came out, last year, the year before, whatever, when it was introduced, everybody was throwing themselves off the rooftops, that it would be the end of our life as we know it. It's not that way, and I don't think it will be that way. I think it's like anything, it's a shock, it comes in, you're like, oh my God, no one's ever going to want a headshot again. Yes, they are. Yeah, you're not going to be able to AI a wedding.
Yeah.
You probably somebody's tried, and I would imagine the pictures are probably quite good. Everybody will have 6 fingers because it hasn't figured that out yet.
No.
The technology, you have to be careful with it and not let it overtake what you do.
Mm-hmm.
The speed of which you supply the imagery has changed. Obviously, we used to get film developed and have to wait a week and pray that everything was going to be all right, and then they'd get the slides or the negatives or the prints or whatever. It's instantaneous now. We don't work on that fact. Things have to be beautified to a point. And I think if clients are taught to wait a little bit longer, they maybe appreciate the end product a little bit more than it being, there you go, you can have it straight away.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You think?
I mean,
100%.
in terms, when we first started talking then about how technology is coming through and then you picked up your phone, I mean, everyone does feel like they're a bit of a photographer.
Everybody takes a picture of themselves from there.
With a filter.
With a filter.
Generally on a wider angle, so they look thinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a high vantage point, and there's probably a filter going to be whacked in there at some point. It's an unrealistic view of how you look, whereas we photograph reality, but in a beautiful way. So I think people have this vision of themselves only because of what they've done to themselves. And by the way, they record themselves every day, and then they see something from a different point of view on a better camera, maybe better light, and it's just a different version, really.
But I think the photography now needs to be more of an experience, more of a service, because that will set aside somebody going, oh, I can AI your headshot. But I think after COVID, I think people now too are wanting to connect more.
Absolutely.
They're wanting, like, this wouldn't have happened before COVID.
No.
People want something more fulfilling, more gratifying.
It's the experience, and you can get bogged down in the business. The business, for what it is, you can get completely bogged down into financial figures and tax and all this stuff, and profit margins and everything, which is still a part, but you're not giving an experience. I was saying before, I photographed some lawyers yesterday. It's not about the headshot I was taking. It's about meeting that lady or man coming into the room, and within 10 seconds, they're doing exactly what I need them to do, and that's through by how I am, what I'm making them do, the way I'm talking to them, the way I introduce myself, everything like that.
And they're going to enjoy that experience. Like, so one of the ladies that came in, she was probably traumatized from the previous photography experience. So Brett has all that to kind of contend with, make her feel comfortable, because she's already feeling quite self-conscious and a little bit nervous, to break down that barrier and make her confident. She has to see the back of the camera, and as a rule, I don't show the back of the camera.
Okay.
I think when I was doing your headshots, I think I showed you one. And she screamed, right? And so people came in the office like, is everything all right? And she was screamed with joy, complete and utter joy. And she was like, that's me, that is, oh my God, let's just carry on going if we can for a few more minutes. That's what you want, that's why we do what we do. And I think a lot, particularly nowadays, that's overlooked as a thing that you need as a creative. You need that. If somebody sits there and if you show somebody a picture and they go, okay, you're like, oh, okay, that was my best one. What's happening? Yeah, and that doesn't happen very often, now and then. So you work on that creative process, you're working on that with them, and that's why I tend not to show straight from the horse's mouth, because there are certain things that you want to get right.
Absolutely, and I imagine some form of editing afterwards, just tweaking things.
Yeah, and it's minimal. I wasn't born to sit behind a computer. I was born to be out there taking pictures, and that's kind of the way I see it.
But I think because Brett trained, I want to say old school, can I say old school? With film, with developing, he is still very much a believer that you take the picture in the camera, not make it in Photoshop afterwards. So that's maybe quite a different mentality to what some people do now, which is not wrong, but it's just, that's our school of thought. So he's very much into creating the picture with the lighting, with the correct exposure, with the focal point.
I think you stay true to what you want to produce. If I was taking pictures every day of what I do, but not really what I want to do, you know what I mean? Even headshots, I stumble on lighting it how I want it to look ultimately, and that's why they've come to me. That's key to success in any business. I don't want to walk into any environment in the morning of a shoot and think, oh, here we go again. I want to walk in there and think, they're going to get awesome today because I'm on it, I'm lighting it good, everything's going to be, you know, how I want it to be ultimately, and that's why they come to you. So stay true to yourself as a designer or photographer or whatever it is that you do. There'll be a client for you, and that's kind of important. I'm not looking to get every client.
Yeah.
I'm just looking to get the clients that want what we do.
Oh, I love that. We have the same sort of values of we work with people that we like and we get on with, because that's how you do the best work, and it's how they're going to get the best work out of you.
100%.
Let's talk about the process then. So again, we were talking about taking the shot that you want to take and you belong behind the camera. How do you feel that technology and perhaps style has sort of come in and the photographers of tomorrow are being trained? How do you feel that they're being trained right now?
We're training some of them. I think, so just going back kind of to around 2008, we advanced within that course that we started, I think it was 2004, and Brett and I became trainers for the course. So we would do photography training on behalf of the course. From there, we then set up our own photography training. So we would do courses at different venues around the country. We would do them abroad. We would rent a big chateau in France for a week and have a group of photographers and bring models and makeup and hair and clothing and spend a week fully catered, which it was amazing.
It's like a retreat, really.
A retreat, yeah, like a photographer's retreat. So kind of 2010 to 2013, we did that. Alongside the weddings and the commercial work. The weddings were our main, I guess, bread and butter money. From there fed a lot of lifestyle work and commercial work. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of that was the photography training. So that we started training other photographers, because I think there was a big movement too of women in photography, which has been huge. It's been, I think Annabelle Williams started that, being a woman herself. Yeah. She opened the door to a younger, fresher community of women photographers. So I think that was a huge movement within photography, and obviously it's carried on still, which is amazing.
Photography as such has drastically changed. I don't. It's the application of what's done with it afterwards, maybe, that has more than the actual picture taken itself. I think there was an American photographer called Gary Fong who said, you know, you can light things, you can have people jumping in the air, you can have them lying on train tracks, I think he mentioned, because that was a fad at one point, people doing shoots on train tracks. Weird, don't do that.
I think we did that.
No, I never lay in it. I had somebody stood next to a train track, not lying on it, and he said, I can't remember the quote exactly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll look back at these moments in 20 years and just laugh at what you were doing. He said, in true photography, you'll look back and you'll cry. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, because you want to look back at those pictures and not feel stupid about what you made somebody do. You want to look back at the moments, the reality of it, not necessarily the augmented reality that you're creating.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that Brett has done really well is, and I think what also obviously too what we've, I guess the style that we've created has been very natural, not twee, not gimmicky. It's, you know, I think
it's got longevity.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of key.
I think we can look back at our weddings from 20 years ago and still think, no, that looks really beautiful. It wasn't gimmicky, it wasn't trendy. Yep. We've just been good and real.
I never followed fads.
Yeah.
I've just gone down my own path, but I've kind of stayed true to what I wanted to produce, because ultimately it's the same as graphic design. It's you.
Yep.
It's not a computer doing this, it's you, and it's your everything to do with who you are as a person shows in that website that you've done, or that pamphlet, or anything, whatever you're doing for that client. And it's exactly the same with photography.
Absolutely.
It's just an extension of the way that I see the world, and that's why my clients come to us.
Substance over style.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was something I was interested to talk about, because, and we see it in the design industry, lots of sort of new designers sort of coming up, and their work is very much of the moment. And I wonder how, what's the concepts behind it, how much time has been spent on the actual idea, as opposed to, well, this is in at the moment. Do you...
Smash and grab.
Yeah, smash and grab, like fast food.
Well, when you did our logo, it was
A process.
you walked in the house, I'm like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. Yeah, he didn't pay me to say that. Yeah, but it was the whole process of it. We sat down, we chatted, we had a laugh. Instantly, we kicked off, and you started talking about fonts, and I'm like, yeah, this is where I want to be. I don't want to think that somebody's just smashed it through a computer and gone, oh, there's a template with all your stuff. What do you think? And it was that weekly, bi-weekly, twice monthly, whatever process that we went through to get to the eventual product that was sometimes more important than the actual ending.
Absolutely.
And don't overestimate that as an important part of what you do in business.
But I think on a time scale too, I think 2008, things drastically changed, as in blogs became a thing, digital became a thing. At one point, we never sold a digital file. Well, we didn't have a digital file. Even when we initially started doing digital cameras, people only got the images that they paid for. Where now it's very different, where people will do a wedding shoot and they have access to all those files. In 2008, that just wasn't a done thing, because we were still of the mentality of the carousel with each individual slide in there. I mean, you think how many pictures we would shoot at a wedding then on film, opposed to something now. Yeah. Which is, it's a hard comparison, really.
It just allowed you to, I think the digital thing allowed you to shoot more, and it allowed you to get better faster. Definitely, because you weren't thinking, if I shoot a roll here, that's 30 quid to be drum scanned, it's da-da-da. So you're quite selective on what you shoot. It was a good way to be, I think, to have experienced that as a photographer. I know some guys are shooting 10, 20,000 pictures at a wedding. It's not photography for me. Anybody can just go and spray and pray. Yeah. I want to be more choice about the moments that I'm capturing, because I don't want myself or Kristie to sit there on the edit computer for weeks. They should
I'll refuse.
Yeah. So I might shoot 2,000 pictures at a wedding, 2,500.
Yeah.
And the client might get half of those.
So how did you feel with the, when digital photography first came in? Was that a bit of it would be a huge move for you guys, I imagine.
Yeah. Scary move.
It was scary. Yeah. We did it slowly. We didn't jump on board straight away. I was very much a full frame photographer, Leica cameras, slide film. It was very much fixed prime lenses, being in people's faces, not hiding in bushes with zoom lenses. That can be a bad thing and a good thing. Depends what you're photographing. I waited for the full frame camera without getting too technical about it. Waited for the first full frame camera that I wanted to get. It was digital to come out. I think it was a Canon 1DS at the time. And then we very much treated it as if it was film. It was very much a gentle aspect of it, but it allowed me to go out and practice and shoot things and not have to worry about, like I said before, that extra expensive development. It was an instantaneous thing for us. And then, of course, how you worked on it became as important as to how you took it, because ultimately that's your end product. So there was other things to learn. Photoshop came in, that sort of stuff. So it was a gradual process. It wasn't a threatening one. Yeah. We didn't overly explain to clients that pictures were there, and it wasn't an immediate thing. Phones kind of didn't have decent cameras at that point. So the immediateness of the imagery for them in their lives,
and there was no Instagram.
There,
There was no Instagram. Facebook was maybe just starting to come about.
Social media wasn't a thing.
Yeah, I think what was starting to become popular were blogs and wedding blogs, and I think there was, in the wedding industry, there was a transition from we were doing a lot of wedding shows, the big NEC show at Birmingham, Saatchi Gallery in London. We were doing all these big wedding fairs, and then it started to change, as in how people were finding photographers. It was like online was the thing. So we kind of.
Whereas in the beginning it was just Yellow Pages, man.
Yeah,
That was
seriously,
it.
we had
I am
an
that
advert,
old.
an advert in the Yellow Pages. Yeah, I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
So in terms of how you market yourselves then, obviously the image does a lot of the work for you, but have you found that a struggle? Have you found something that works better than maybe another way? Like you talk about Yellow Pages, but how is the best?
Everybody should have one of these.
Okay.
Right, it's brilliant.
Okay.
It's expensive, but it's
Yeah.
well worth it.
Networking, hands down,
Really?
100% from
Massive.
day zero of getting to know people and meeting people, because building connections, which is what we've done. I mean, I guess through the wedding industry, it was us meeting wedding planners, wedding venues, building relationships with the planners, the hotels, and that's how we got our recommendations. That's how we still get our recommendations. So it's very much getting out there and meeting people. I think for the first 20 years of business, that sounds crazy, we never worked locally, which is crazy. We always, the first 10 years, it was mostly Cheshire, the Lake District. The second 10 years, we started to get into London. And that, the wedding work for the past 10 years has been majority in London. Big events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, parties, weddings abroad. So it was the connections and the relationships that we built for the event planners who were planning these big events that we got on board with.
There's a line out of one of my favourite movies, Heat, and it's this kind of shit here sells itself. Yeah, and we've always gone down that road, but now and then it just needs a little nudge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where Kristie comes in with the networking. You know, I find it very hard to sell myself. I always have, and I think a lot of creatives do, to say, hey, come on, I'm the best thing there is. Look at my work. I let my pictures do the talking.
Yeah.
But to have that representation from the business is invaluable.
And I love that. I do.
Yeah.
I do. I love getting out. I love hearing people's stories. I think it's inspiring. I think, and I think kind of jumping forward to moving here in 2001 has been a massive shift. I think as my
Moving to this country, not to the Vile Coast.
no, to the File Coast.
Oh,
2000. Oh, sorry. 2021.
Yeah.
There we go. It has been a massive shift in what I do and in the business. So from 2012 to 2021, we left our studio and we worked from home. We had 2 young kids, and that was my role, but 100%. I mean, it still is 100%. But I stayed behind the scenes. I worked from the office. You know, we went from people coming into the studio, quite localish, or maybe even London, coming up to the studio to see their pictures, to pretty much all of our clients being down south. So there's a part that I've never met a lot of our clients. It's all been over the phone. It's all been over email. But I worked behind the scenes and did all the editing, did all the album design, did all the corresponding, did all the invoice whilst breastfeeding and running after a toddler. So that was our and Brett and his team would be out shooting. So that's how we worked it, and that was for 10 years.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And then COVID hit, which was not great for the wedding industry. Let's face it. But on the other hand, if you want to think of looking on the brighter side, it gave us a pause and made us make a really big decision about moving house. We kind of capitalized on the housing market and decided to sell up, which we'd been renovating a property for 8 years, and thought, you know what, we kind of threw on the idea of going back to Canada. For whatever reason, I think we probably viewed 150 houses and eventually put an offer in on the house we're in now. And I feel like it's been like a full circle.
Yep.
Because I'm meeting people that I met in 2000 and one when I worked here, which is insane.
And because of that networking, and again, I like networking, but I'm a photographer, I like to be out doing my thing.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, when you're shooting, it's very much networking because you don't know who you're talking to really half the time. So you have, you know, you're selling yourself subliminally really. But I did more commercial jobs last year since, you know, from the Fylde Coast and Manchester and Cheshire through Kristie's networking than I have done since we've been in business collectively.
Wow.
I'm not talking weddings, I'm just talking commercial work. So that shows that it's paid off massively.
Yeah. But I think for me, as I guess in developing,
Yeah.
you know, after we got through COVID and both children are in school now full time, it gave me a different opportunity. It's just a different chapter where I'm now more front facing of the business, where before I was behind the scenes. So a massive change in what I do. So I feel like sometimes I'm in a new job because for the past 10 years I've been, you know, people knew my name, but they didn't really, I haven't met a lot of people.
Sure.
Even some of the big wedding planners, I've never met them before. So yeah, it's definitely a different chapter. We say chapter 3 if we're going in decades. But
we've just got a new
studio.
A new studio. So where's the new studio?
It's in Ansdell. And yeah, we're super excited. So it's been 11 years since we've had a studio.
Wow.
So yeah, it's going to be a good year. We've got lots of exciting things in the pipeline. And
I think it's longevity.
Yes.
That's what we've got. We still have. And I think to start off in a tiny little studio and then it's not that we're finishing off in one at all because might be something else after that, but to come back to it, I think it's quite important to sort of have that journey. You've got to have goals and you've got to look for what we want to be doing, what kind of photography do we want to be doing in 5 years, 10 years, and make plans to try and get to that point.
but peaks and valleys.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, every business goes through it.
100%. And I think, you know, we're married. We're a husband and wife team working together. It's not easy. You know, it's heated sometimes. Like we're both very passionate about what we do and about kind of the lives that we want to lead. So yeah, we've done. I'm not gonna say because it's not over yet. We're still very much in it, but I feel like, yeah, we've done it. We're doing it.
And I mean, you clearly work well together. I mean, I've been in those meetings with you guys where we've been discussing the logo and both have a very strong opinion on which way or the other.
It generally gears, you know, that those motorways combine at the end.
Absolutely.
You know, but yeah, we're on the same wavelength from the get-go. It might not come out that way initially, but...
We're going back to networking. I mean, certainly since COVID, I feel networking's really kicked off in a big way.
100%.
And I think that sort of craving for sort of human interaction and going back to your point of experience. So the service you're providing is an experience and people are craving that. And we certainly see it with big brands like Nike that are focusing on communities over sort of huge brand awareness. They'd rather focus on these small little pockets that people can come to. So I think going forward, network is just going to get stronger and stronger.
And again, collaboration over competition, 100%. I mean, there's a million photographers out there, there's a million designers out there. Not everybody's going to gel with us, and that's fine. Do you know, there's something for everyone, and I think we're not in competition. We have something very unique and special, and if that aligns with what you're looking for, then we're a match. You know, and
it's the same as how you come across in business. It's I don't leave a shoot and people go, "Oh, bet you got great pictures." They say, "Mate, thanks for being here. Geez, you just to have you here was enough." You know, it's the way you are.
Yeah.
And the product is almost secondary, although it's a vital key. Obviously, that's what it's all about. But yeah, a guy came on a training course once years ago, and he was having a coffee break, and he said to me, "You know, I'm a bit stuck," and I was like, "Yeah, well, what's the problem?" He said, I really don't like people." Yeah, and this was a lifestyle wedding course, and I'm like, and I think he was a furniture photographer at the time. There was probably a reason. But he became a very good photographer ultimately because he just learned how to be in a different situation that initially was just foreign to his way of thinking. You've got to love people doing what we do.
Yeah.
And that's a massive part of it, and it comes across. And then when I always say that I'm a great believer as I get back from the subject what I give silently, and that's really important. If I'm stuck behind the technology of a camera and I'm looking at histograms and all this stuff, and then I expect that person to be into what I'm trying to get from them, it ain't gonna happen.
No.
Yeah, we've done a shoot together.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to think it was a half decent experience.
Oh, it was
for
great.
me. There'll be others.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really about the pictures. It was about us having a bit of a laugh.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's about. And that's when you start to get things back from the subject, especially in a portraiture sense. If it's just you and me sat in a box, there's something got to happen. Yeah.
And going back to the experience, I mean, it was a great experience, crazy. We went down. I thought I was just going to have a few headshots done, and next thing you know, we're on the roof of the building, we're on the stairwell, we're everywhere,
Yeah.
and it was a fantastic experience. But those are the kind of things that I talk. So when I'm talking to other people about it, those are the kind of things that I'm mentioning.
Yeah.
It was.
You're
it
not
was
selling
great.
the ultimate images, which were great,
No.
which is great, by the way. You're selling the experience that you had.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in business just forget completely about it.
And that's what's exciting about having the studio, is that we're going to have a platform where we can give people a nice cup of coffee and have a chat and feel comfortable with the candles on and some music on, and that they're enjoying their session, whether that's a commercial session or a family session.
You want to come in and forget the world for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of environment we're going to try and create, similar to the studios we've had in the past, is that people come out of their hectic daily lives. You can't expect someone to walk into a studio and immediately give you what you need. It takes time. We're not into smash and grab portrait shoots. It might take 2-3 hours. Headshots are a little bit quicker, but if it's a portraiture session, I'm looking to capture something that they've never had before. So we do a lot of actors and things like that. So you're looking for that character to come out, and you know, even actors, it takes time for them to get into that mode.
Absolutely.
So yeah, to have that space to be able to do that for, especially when the weather's pretty bad, then it's pretty cool.
So speaking of characters then, what's been the sort of craziest, most random experience you've ever had on a shoot? Have you had any random shoots? Have you bumped into someone famous and taken their photo?
Yeah, we've photographed a lot of footballers' weddings.
Okay.
Can't really talk about that.
Yeah.
The book will be out in 20 years.
We've photographed some really cool, uber cool events. Celebrities, a lord and a lady.
We've done weddings from 2 people to 1,500 people.
Wow.
And that was a sit-down meal where they built a marquee over the actual stately home. So the fountain was part of the seating area, but was usually outside, but obviously it was inside.
Yeah.
Did a wedding at the Dorchester. I was photographing outside in the rain, the couple under this on overhang, and an entourage came in, they tripped over my bag, which I'd foolishly put down in the entrance. Looked to my left, and it was Stevie Wonder.
And he then came back out and said...
Well, he didn't. His management came out, and I thought I was going to get in trouble for tripping him. We apologised. It was fine. He wasn't injured or anything. He just clipped his leg. His management came out and said that Mr. Wonder would love to sing a song for the bride and groom if we were interested.
So literally took the couple into the lounge in the Dorchester and played the piano and sang, and
Oh
it
my
was
God.
amazing.
Just once you've watched all these podcasts, just go on YouTube and Google Stevie Wonder
But he's
wedding
quite
crasher.
he
it's
does it
there.
a lot.
Somebody filmed it from the
Wow.
the piano bar that we were in. It's on YouTube to this day. It's still there.
But yeah, the couple were just like, oh my God. But yeah, that was pretty surreal.
We've been in some situations, yeah.
Sounds it.
And you've got to know how to handle these situations. I don't do stress in life, maybe, but when I'm working, not.
Yeah.
It can't show.
No.
It cannot show for 1 second. And all right, there are a lot more stressful jobs. I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm taking photographs at the end of the day. But if it shows that I'm having a bit of a moment, then I'm never going to get back from what I want from that client. Especially in the wedding environment, we've done some pretty crazy big weddings where I might be given 4 or 5 minutes with a couple.
Yep.
And that's it. And I've got to know what I want. Yeah, I always say it's like playing a game of snooker. It's not about the shot you've taken, it's about the shot you haven't taken yet.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it's good that I just thought of that. But it's very important that I'm not in the moment I'm actually in. I'm thinking about the moment that I haven't got to yet.
Yeah.
Because that's key. Yeah.
So, do you have any advice for sort of budding photographers or anyone even thinking about starting a business?
Don't. No, I'm just completely joking. Do I have any advice?
If you don't love it,
don't do it.
don't do it.
Do something
Honestly,
else.
your passion has to be the underlying reason for whatever you do, whether it's design, whether it's beauty, whether it's wellness, whatever it is, you've got to love what you do.
There will be
100%.
times when you go through Van Gogh moments. There will be not when you cut your ear off, hopefully, but there will be times when you think, what is this about? What am I doing? Am I good enough? We all have imposter syndrome. It creeps in quite regularly. It's just how do you get over that? The next shoot where you get somebody saying, like yesterday, there you go, I'm ready to go again. It's almost like you need to top up the tank with a little bit of that now and then. And you don't get feedback. You get bad feedback if bad feedback comes, but good feedback is quite hard to come by. Although you have satisfied customers, so don't be affected too much by that. If you're in this job for praise, it ain't the right job to do. You've got to know that you're worth, and you've got to know that you're on the right track with what you're doing as a photographer, personally speaking. Keep yourself inspired a lot. That's my excuse for watching movies a lot. Yeah, I love to see how things are lit. I like seeing, the director's cuts of things and going through magazines and trying to figure out by the eyeballs and which softbox is in there. I'm that sad. Just how has it been lit? I wonder how they've gone about that. So it's quite important to keep abreast of things like that. But keep it fresh, keep it relevant, but ultimately do what you want to do, produce what you want to do, not what somebody else wants you to do.
I think that's probably a huge challenge for, I guess, people that are just starting out, because you don't have a style, but I think with more, 10,000 hours to master
I think more.
More, yeah. Is to keep trying and experimenting, and you do. Ultimately, you are taking a piece from there and a piece from there and a piece from there to create your own thing, because everybody gets inspiration off other artists, whether it's photography or design or movies. For Brett, it's combining that all and bringing it together. So I think that's probably artistically the biggest challenge, is to find what your style is and then keep evolving. That's, again, I think what you've done over the past 20 years is his style is still the same, but it's evolved, and it's...
Keep taking pictures. I mean, obviously I'm talking as a photographer, but I probably don't do it enough, so it might be my own worst, hypocrite here, but I used to walk the streets just for the hell of it with a camera. There's no financial gain in that. It's just for the wonderment of what I might capture, and that's important. The candle doesn't burn brightly sometimes, and the last thing you want to do is go and pick up a camera. But don't be worried about that. That's just part of being a creative. I'm sure you have graphic design blackouts in your head sometimes when you're working on projects, but then something happens that just sparks oh, there you go, that's what I've been looking for. The answer comes. So yeah, just keep at it, and like I said, you will find a client. You have to make it easier for the clients to find you, but don't ever get into the realms of, all right, we all shoot things that maybe we don't want to do. I'm not doing my thing every time I pick up a camera. No, for sure. A lot of clients will say, listen, can you do this? And then at the end of the shoot, I'll just pop in what I want to do, and then that's what they'll be drawn to.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful.
Thanks for having us. Much appreciated.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Brand Stories. Make sure to follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and updates on future episodes. Until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep sharing your brand story.